Was one more thing. Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday Hangout. This is the show where we talk about digital marketing news we found interesting this week and hang out with experts we find fascinating. I'm Janet Fouts, and joining me today on the panel is the fabulous Steve Farnsworth.
Woo, yay! I guess I'm yaying for myself. That's kind of rude.
It is, but it's normal. Today we're talking with Dave Delaney, and we're going to be talking about professional networking in the age of social media. Welcome to the show, Dave, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the Great White North.
Oh, wait, we have a Canadian on the show?
Yes, I could start with cool, 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 but the youngins won't get that reference at all, which happens so often these days.
It's all right. Hey, you know, I'm from Wisconsin, so I think I'm Canadian anyway.
There you go. Yeah, you're an honorary Canuck. Yeah, so from Toronto originally, moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 07.
Because that's a logical migration.
It's a weird one. My wife is actually from here, or near here, and we met backpacking in Ireland in '98. So
that's hysterical. I don't know why. That's a great story, though.
Small world. And then we ended up having Irish twins, which was, yeah, so our kids are 7 and 8. They're 11 and a half months apart, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so I work in digital marketing. I'm a consultant. I specialize in social media marketing, of course. I worked with Griffin Technology for 3.5 years, and I managed all their social media. I was their Twitter account. I was their Facebook account. I was the blogger and all that good stuff. And then I worked with Emma Email Marketing before that. And I have worked for a bunch of newspaper, television network, and performing arts.
Around a little.
Yeah, I get around. And then, yeah, and then I went out. Oh, gotta turn that on mute. And then I went out on my own several years ago now and wrote a book called New Business Networking. And I specialize in still mainly auditing what my clients are doing online, and then developing strategies based on what they are actually doing and what they're trying to achieve, and kind of rethinking what they do. And then also one-on-one consulting as well, sometimes coaching and things.
Busy guy.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what new business networking means to you.
Well, to me, what the book means, or what the concept of new business.
The
Concept.
Yeah. Because the book means different things at different days. No, what the book is about and what new business networking is all about is the idea of growing your network now before you actually need it, and meeting people and helping people first, like traditional networking is. But mixing in online and offline. So it's not just attending events and things like that, although that is part of it, but it's also using online, using social media, and using tools, CRM tools and things like that, to actually meet people and to build relationships online.
And you help people actually build a strategy for how to do that?
Yeah, I help people do that, and I also and that's what a lot of the book is about. That, like, I've got chapters specifically about attending events or organizing events, things like that. But then I also have chapters on using LinkedIn effectively, or using Twitter, things like that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, Dave, what really got you into that? I mean, it's kind of an interesting career. You know, kidding aside, it's kind of an interesting career trajectory. I mean, how did you kind of go from kind of where you started to being involved, like doing social media and working for media organizations, to actually becoming a social business networking expert? Is your kind of claim to fame? How did that kind of happen for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've always been really good at networking. The crazy part is that I didn't realize it. And I co-founded Nashville's first bar camp, which is a huge technology unconference, and then the first PodCamp Nashville, which is also an unconference, more about podcasting and blogging, and BarCamp's more about technology and hardware, software, that kind of thing. But by organizing those two events in Nashville and then creating monthly networking events to keep people together, one called Geek Breakfast and one called Nash Cocktail, I had a friend pull me aside one day and say, you know, you kind of miss your calling here. You're really good at connecting people and organizing people and online relationships. I've been, you know, communicating online since 1984 when I ran a BBS on my Commodore 64 in the wee hours of the night.
Wow.
So I've always been about community and meeting people and connecting and connecting others. And it just made sense. And so I've got a lot of peers and friends in the industry, in the sort of social media marketing industry, I guess, some people that have been online for a long, long time. And they also inspired me to kind of go out and do it myself and write the book about it.
So for people who are kind of, let's see, introverts and aren't really great at networking face-to-face,
yeah.
how is this different?
Well, you know, the thing with connecting, the thing with networking, if you're introverted or shy or what have you, is I treat networking like I do, or like I did dating. I'm happily married, so I got to be careful what I'm saying.
I love the disclaimer.
Get myself into trouble. No, but I believe that networking is as important for your career and part of your life as dating and job interviews, right? So nobody likes job interviews. Nobody likes them at all. They suck. And nobody likes, or maybe some people like dating, but the first date is always, you know, awkward and things. And sometimes they're fun in retrospect, but going out on that first date can be really, you know, awkward as well and kind of stressful. And the same thing with going to networking events. Walk into a room where everybody has a name tag, not knowing a soul, and figuring out, you know, what you're going to do there is really important. And it's as important. It's as those two other things. So I think what you need to do is get out of your house and go to the events. And there's ways to do it, though. I mean.
Well, David, let me ask you about that. So like, I'm an introvert, and like, if I, you know, for me, like, I actually love public speaking. You know, it's really funny. I mean, I actually know other introverts are comfortable speaking in large groups too, because it's just you on a stage, and it's like you're by yourself and you're talking to a void, more or less, because you can't focus on any one person.
Sure.
They put me in a regular social. You know, if I go to a marketing event with other marketing geeks, I'm in pig in a trough. I'm a happy camper. I can go on about all kinds of nerdy stuff. But if I try to have that same conversation at a normal event that doesn't have much other marketing geeks, it's really awkward for me. It's like, if I want to start talking about marketing, they go, "Wow, that's I got to be over there now," and you know, kind of, I have a hard time. I remember, like, when I used to go to marketing events. Networking events. And I wouldn't know what to say, and I would actually, like, listen to people have conversations, because I really didn't know, because I don't have that gene. Like, I don't really care about cars or the latest sports team or having the latest iPhone. Those are things that excite me intellectually, and so I didn't have that chit chat capability. So somebody like myself, I mean, like, I've found ways to compensate for that, because I do have to go to networking events and other kinds of things on a pretty regular basis that aren't always fellow marketing geeks, which I still, frankly, I prefer, because I can have a conversation. But for somebody like myself, or Janet, I suspect too, and other people who have a hard time, like, with that kind of chit-chatty stuff, what kind of strategies can we use to, like, have conversations that when we just really don't know what to say, literally don't know what to say?
Yeah, well, the first thing about a networking event, especially when you're not comfortable there, is understand that most people aren't comfortable there the first time, especially if they don't know anyone. And so but the good thing about a networking event or a conference or something is that you see people with name tags. You see people with name tags, and so you know, or a lanyard or whatever, and you know they're part of that event, which helps. So you can go over to them and say, hey, you know, you can introduce yourself. The thing is, nobody goes to a networking event who wants to be alone, right? It's really important to think about it that way. You know, they don't go out of their way to, you know, nobody gets out of their, you know, gets dressed up, goes after work, or, you know, leaves their house to go to an event to meet other people, and then just stand there by themselves in the corner. I mean, they end up doing that sometimes when they're shy. But I think some tips really with that is to go to the event, arrive early, and straight away talk to the organizers. And if they're running around like crazy, then go and talk to sponsors if there's a sponsor table. You know, go and talk to people that are looking to talk to people straight away. And if there is someone by themselves, then go over and ask and say, hey, this is my first time at this event. You know, have you been at this event before? What brings you to this event? And you can be more comfortable when asked those questions if you practice it in front of a mirror even before you go to this event and say, who are you, what do you do, and why are you at this event? And by rehearsing that, it helps you say it easier when someone asks, but at the same time, it also helps you answer the question, why are you attending this event? What do you hope to get from this event? Whether it's, I don't know. So it's good to kind of, it helps you think about it before going to the event. And then you can use tools like Eventbrite and Facebook and things that have open invitations, so you can see the people that are actually attending ahead of time sometimes, and then maybe decide who you want to reach out to before.
Right, and I get all that, and I can do all that, but I literally, for me, what it's one of those things is I don't have that the ability for chit chat. And there's only so much, and frankly, like, what do you do kinds of questions I think are kind of limiting, and because it's really, it's like, what do you do for a living, and that's, oh, I'm an X, and that's that in and of itself is not a very deep or interesting conversation. So in terms of kind of conversational strategies, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do is you be the one that starts the conversation. Don't let someone else start it. So you're the one that asks not what they do for a living necessarily, but you could ask them what brings them to the event. And that probably correlates with what they do for a living, and maybe it doesn't. But that's a good opening point. It's a good icebreaker. And then, if you use, there's an acronym, LISTEN, which I wrote about in my book, where you look interested, you involve yourself, you stay on target, you test your understanding of what they're saying, and then you evaluate the message, and you neutralize the feelings. And what I mean by that is, look interested, smiling, looking them in the eye. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Looking them in the eye, right? Like, there's nothing worse than staring over someone's shoulder as they're talking to you to see who else is in the room, or looking down at your phone, which we all tend to do, and we have to try to avoid doing, is looking at your phone when someone's talking to you. So look interested to what they're saying to you, and then involve yourself by as I said, by nodding, but you can also say and just little signals, little audio verbal signals to let them know that you're listening. And then stay on target, meaning let them keep talking about themselves. And that's hard for us to do a lot of the time. It's sometimes even when you're nervous. I do this, and but I'll bring it back to me and talk about a story, talk about something of my own anecdote, and it's something I've always tried to stop doing, and let the person keep talking. So if they tell you a story or something that happened at the office, you can say, and then what happened, or what happened next, or what was the outcome of that, and really start that conversation.
But let me just, for clarification, now, you mean, I understand what you're saying, is like, a lot of times we'll go, right, that makes me think of X, and you're saying, be careful about that, and I think that's a great strategy. Yeah. But I also know that part of that recipe is also self-disclosure. So you're not suggesting not to say something, but just kind of like, if someone shares something, let them go to the natural end, then maybe a little self-disclosure, and then ask them a question, that kind of, so there's a little bit of reciprocity, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it feels awkward, like it's the Spanish Inquisition or something.
Where are you from? How did you get here? Where do you live?
What are you doing here? Yeah. Shining a light in their face.
Does this smell like chloroform to you?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I always say, if you're staring at them in the eyes and it feels like, you're freaking them out, then maybe.
And sweating.
Well, as a personal thing, it's something I try to do. I try to do that combination, because I actually will look at people. It just, when I'm wired, I like, and so one of the things I try to do is, I know that is really uncomfortable, so I try to do that kind of look at them, break eye contact, look at them, so there's a more of a comfortable pace, and they don't feel it. Because some people, I mean, it's interesting is when you actually really pay attention to the people, some people are deathly afraid of looking at somebody else. So they'll have a conversation with you and look down, and an entire conversation with there's this occasional kind of glance up. So.
Yeah, and the trick is really, I mean, you can't help what they're doing, but you can help what you're doing, really. So, but I know what you mean. Like, it's difficult sometimes, but if it feels uncomfortable, Another thing you can do, too, is if they're talking with their hands a lot, you can kind of mirror them, not in a freaky way, but you can also talk with your hands a bit, and it makes them feel a little more comfortable.
Great.
I hear what you're saying, Dave.
Stop freaking people out. That's my point to all of this. Do not freak people out.
Go ahead, Jen, please.
So how can people use, like when I'm going to go to an event and I know I'm going to be networking, and I am a really bad networker, because I do that. I interrupt people and I tell them my own story because I'm too nervous to listen to theirs, which is a really bad habit. So I try to learn a little bit about who I think is going to be there, and I'll kind of pick a few people that I want to talk to and get some background on them through social media before I go.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So how else can they use social, to really be social?
Well, I mean, as you said, use it to research the people before the events. I have a chapter in my book about that, about researching people beforehand and researching companies, so you can know who's going and have some talking points. There's a great app. It's an iOS app, and they also have it for Google Glass. It's called Refresh. And
I use that.
Yeah, and I actually interviewed the founder on. I also have, I didn't even mention, I have a podcast as well called New Business Networking Radio, and I interviewed the founder of Refresh, Bhavin Shah, and the app is fantastic, and you can really get a good idea of what that person's all about before meeting them.
For people who don't know what it is.
Know what the app is. Can you talk about what the app is?
So the app it's basically, it gives you a dossier of it looks at your Google Calendar or your calendar, and it sees who you're going to have a meeting with that day. So say I have a meeting with you at 4 o'clock, it'll send me an email at 8 in the morning to say, hey, you're having a meeting with Janet today, and Steve, and take a look at their, and it'll show you, it'll look at all of your public information on social networks and give me a dossier about you ahead of time, so that I can have some talking points. I can see, hey, we like the sports team. It does. That's the whole purpose of it. And Bhavin really has a fascinating story of how this thing came up, because he was working in Afghanistan with the U.S. military and with a senator who was traveling around, and the senator had these dossiers on the people that he was meeting, these tribe leaders and these people, and so he would have this information ahead of time and know exactly what he had to talk about to each person. And he was so impressed with it that he developed this app, which is pretty wild. But it's a really great app. I highly recommend it. It's free.
There was an app, and similar to that worked with Gmail, and it would Reportative, I think it was, and it would
Reportative.
Actually, Reportative, and it basically did something similar. Is that kind of the same thing ish?
Yeah, that's right. It's similar. Reportative. What Reportative does is, by your email address, it's more text-based, so it works within your email. So say you're in Gmail, it'll open up information about that person in the right side column as you're writing an email message to that person, and so it gives you a little bit of information about them as well. Refresh tends to get more information. It does a lot more, so it's pretty cool.
It is. It's really cool, and it'll send you a message before a meeting and say you're going to meet with A and B, and here's the dossiers on them. So you actually find out a little bit of information about the person, and be able to actually converse with them, hopefully, theoretically.
That's right. Like, I can see Adam here because I had the original meeting. This podcast was with Adam, and so I can see like his.
Yeah, who, by the way, our co-host bailed on us.
Yeah, and that's where he is, in a tent.
He's in a tent someplace.
But that's Refresh. That's feeding me his Instagram account. And then his latest updates, emails we've exchanged, the first email we ever exchanged, Foursquare check-ins where he regulars, his languages he speaks, Facebook, popular tweets and popular Facebook updates, not just the most recent, but the popular ones.
I have to, and one thing about Adam, which is probably interesting for that, I bet you there's more information on anybody you've ever had. Adam is one of the few people I know who literally uses every social platform for some period of time, literally. And Janet's pretty good too, but even I think Adam outstrips her a little bit.
Yeah, well, both of us have a lot of clients, and we like to test the products before we have the clients use them. So we're always on them, and then some of them stick and some of them don't.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's fun.
But, so let's say if you're at an event and you're talking to somebody, and like I heard, and it seems so obvious when you say it, but like a lot of you were talking about earlier, everybody's there to have a conversation, and somebody made the observation, is like, because like, when I go to like I'll say hi to somebody when I bump into them at the coffee table or whatever, when they're standing there, but somebody made a comment like, if somebody's standing alone at a networking event, they're there to talk to somebody. They're a perfect person to go up to. Because a lot of times I end up trying to gravitate, join the circle at somebody's, kind of like start standing there and kind of see if, you can get into the circle kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's really brilliant. The idea of just if somebody's standing there, go up and talk to them because they're there to have a conversation too.
Right.
Let's say you're talking to that person. The other thing which I always kind of remember is like, if you're at an event, you don't want, you're at an event, you want to meet a few people. And so, at some point, like 5 or 10 minutes, you want to like have some kind of you probably want to move on.
You need an exit strategy.
That's where I'm going.
Yes. The bathroom. It is. It's the best.
The most used exit strategy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Excuse me 1 minute, and then move on.
Just go wash your hands and come back.
Right, exactly. And a good thing to do is while you're in the bathroom, if you got their business card, and hopefully you did. Write write a note on the business card about what you talked about with the person and what you should follow up, who you should connect them with, how you can help them. And maybe even what they were wearing, because that often helps you remember who that person was.
Well, it's actually really good. One of the things I actually stopped doing about 2 years ago intentionally is I realized I was going to events and I was giving out cards to people that I was already connected with digitally. Mm. And I'm pretty easy to find too digitally. And so I actually thought, cards seem so antiquated to me. And I understand that they have their value. But I gave up cards about 2 years ago. And I haven't regretted it. And I actually we were at an influencer event a couple weeks ago. Janet and Adam and I and a bunch of others, and Ted Rubin admonished me for my no business card stance. He goes, "Oh, that's horrible."
Yeah. Ted's very old school, though. I mean, the guy writes letters, Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
What do you think about? Do you think that it's choice, or do you think it's a bad call not to have cards?
I think it's a good call to have cards, but I think that the focus should be on the person you're talking to, and then if you have a connection and you find them interesting, to ask for their card. That they will give you their card if they have one. Some people do it wrong and they have their finger on the trigger, ready to give them their card as soon as, here you go, here's mine too. But really, once you have their card, you don't have to give them your card because you can follow up with them, which I hope you do. So I think that's one thing that's really important. I think with cards, I think it's good to always have them. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. So I think it's worth having them, especially if it's somebody really important that you meet. It could be a potential new client, someone like that who asks you for a card and you don't have any. It's just a traditional thing. And so it's good to have a business card. But as I said, always try to ask for a card from someone that you find interesting before offering your own.
I carry my cards now, but they're conversation starters. They have a quote on them. The Gaping Void did a bunch of business cards, and so I use those, and that's how I get conversations going.
Yeah, he's in my book too, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he is.
I love Hugh. He's awesome.
Yeah,
and the quotes really fit the way that I work, so I chose the ones that worked, and they do work as a conversation starter. But that's a good segue to what do you do when you leave a networking event, and you've got the stack of cards, and you've taken a blue marker. This is what I do. I take a blue marker on all the ones that I never ever want to talk to, and were the ones that shoved the card down my throat. And I never even talked to them. They just threw the card at me and walked away. Those are the ones I throw away.
Yeah.
But what about following up?
Yeah, I mean, following up is one of the most important things. I mean, it's not worth going and not following up, right? So there are good ways to do it. I mean, I think the best way to do it is to always follow up with some way that you can help them. And it might be just, it might be an email to say, hey, here's a link to that story that we were talking about. What are your thoughts or something like that, and try to keep it open-ended so they'll reply to you and you can get a conversation going. Connect with them also on LinkedIn. Send them a request on LinkedIn to connect. It's important though to try to write an original message on LinkedIn instead of using the generic connection request. That way you can remind them who you are and where you met and why you think why you'd like to connect with them.
It's actually interesting because I actually, getting back to, because I don't carry cards, I actually on my phone I'll actually launch LinkedIn, and it is in real time, so I can actually then type in and go. And I'll actually even do that as in the kind of part of the conversation. It depends on the situation, but I'll actually do that if it's appropriate in a conversation. Like,
sure,
let's connect on LinkedIn. I'll do it right then, or walk away from that conversation and do it literally right afterwards, so I can have that information.
Yeah, and that's a good way to do it. The only caveat to that is that unfortunately, the mobile LinkedIn app and third-party mobile LinkedIn apps don't let you send a custom message. They send you the generic. So when you connect with someone through the LinkedIn app, or as I said, a third-party app, it's going to send the generic connection request, which sucks. But that's, and I've talked
unless they are actually there and they know that
Yeah,
otherwise it
that's
definitely
fine.
sucks.
Yeah, because I've talked to LinkedIn about it. Some folks at LinkedIn to try to see what the story is with that, and it's one of those things they say if enough people request it, they'll do it. But
okay, so everybody that's watching, all two of you, make sure that you request that.
Definitely, definitely request that.
So
because it is something that's important.
Yeah, I always, when I do send a request, shy of having just had a conversation with somebody, I always customize my message. I always I'd be honored to connect with you here too, kind of thing. But what about the flip side? What if somebody contacts you that it's just not a fit, and they're pursuing you, and you really don't want to have any more conversations with them? They follow up with you, and you don't want to have it. How do you kind of?
Well, if they follow I don't believe in burning bridges, so I think it's worth keeping, you don't have to continue the conversation exactly then and there. Or through your email or what have you. You can say, oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for sending that along. It was a pleasure meeting you. And leave it at that. So, if they keep on at you, well, that's kind of weird.
The stalkerish type.
The stalkerish, then it's just time to, not reply. But... yeah, I think it's worth growing your network with people, interesting people that you meet, and so it may not be someone where there's a fit that you can see how you can help them right now or how they can help you right now or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that later through their career they may change multiple jobs and end up at a place that you really do want to do business with, and having that person that you met that time that you had a connection with, it's worth keeping that connection so that you can follow up with them in the future and say, hey, I would love to talk to someone at your company about blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting. The one thing, and this is slightly different, but I get pinged pretty regularly, as I'm sure you guys do too. From I blog, and my blog is really kind of a personal thing for me in terms of I do it out of intellectual curiosity. I want to meet people, talk to them about ideas, stuff like that. So I don't do product reviews and stuff, but I get requests for to do product reviews.
Yeah.
All day long. Every day I get stuff, and so I used to ignore it or say it's not really a fit. And one of the things I thought about, just in terms of when if people are following up with you, it's not a fit. Is there an opportunity here to say I can't do this, but here's what we can do? And what I did is I created an email, tried to make a very nice one. I thank them for their contacting and I appreciate the opportunity. But right now I'm really focused on client work, and should there be an opportunity to work together for a compensated way, I'd be happy to have a discussion.
If you pay me, I'll talk to you.
Well, because normally they want me to look at either review the product and provide free advice.
Right.
And I literally could spend all day, every day doing this, or review a product, which I don't do product reviews. And, and I actually have two emails. One is more kind of generic for some kind of opportunity that seems free. And actually what I found is that most people, and the other one is when they want a product review, I'll say, I don't, right now I can't do that. It's not something I can do. However, for special people, I do allow sponsorship, and I kind of explained that. I said, if this is a fit, great. If not, I wish you well. And it's very soft and very gentle. And it started a couple of years ago, and I started doing it because I was tired of saying no to people. And I've generated thousands of dollars in business by at least by sending that little, here's an opportunity if there's money involved. And I'm surprised how many people actually follow up on it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great way to do it. It depends on what I'm being pitched exactly. Like if it's a pick your brain session where like there's a website called Clarity.fm that I use, ClarityFM/Dave Delaney, where you can actually call me and we can talk about all things networking, social media marketing, but I charge by the minute, and so that's one way that you can call. Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to talk to you about it. Why don't you give me a call?
I do that too with Clarity.
Do you guys have people use that?
Yeah, a lot, and I donate mine to charity, so it's actually a good thing. Yeah.
And that's through Clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity.
I'll send you a link.
Okay,
we'll
that's
post it on the blog.
I think that's great. We'll also post the refresh link too on the blog.
Yeah.
And Dave, I know that you've got another commitment, and I know you got to go. But thank you so much for this. I feel like I'm empowered to go out and actually network for a change, instead of hiding in the corner with a drink.
Exactly.
Who does that?
So why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at DaveDelaney.me. Has all the link love and all that good stuff there. Or say hello on Twitter. I'm at Dave Delaney on Twitter. And that's the best way. My book's there, my podcast is there, and all that good stuff.
Fabulous. And Steve?
You can find me at Steveology on Twitter or the Steveology blog. And actually, just since Adam's not here, I know one of the things he said, you guys met at a Dell event, I think, in Texas. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was.
And I remember him coming back and talking about you. He said you were a super nice guy, and he just thought the world of you. That's why he wanted to invite you. I'm not sure why he bailed on you today, except for that whole camping thing.
I know. Well, if I could be in a tent, I would be too.
There you go.
So I'm kind of jealous, actually. But yeah, no, Adam's great. It gets back to that networking thing, right? Like Adam and I, last we saw each other was at the New Media Expo last year in Vegas, and I spoke, and so we spoke after my presentation there. I do a lot of speaking and about networking and social media, but I think our relationship goes back to my Griffin days too, back when I worked at Griffin Technology. So yeah, it's been a while. Probably at CES, I would imagine CES.
There you go. And Steve, where can people find you?
Still again at Steveology on Twitter. And
there you go.
Blog.
And you can find me at jfouts on Twitter or janetfouts.com. I'd like to remind everybody that you can catch the show every week live on Fridays at 11-ish Pacific time, or you can watch it live at thefridayhangout.com. You can watch the recording on YouTube. The podcast goes on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube. What the hell? Thanks, everybody. It was a great show.
Thank you. Thanks very much.